All right, this little lesson will give you an idea of how you can explain to your students the rules for dividing integers. As I mentioned in the previous little video on multiplying integers, I haven't found in all of the years I've been doing teaching of algebra and mathematics a really good physical model for dividing integers, especially that division of negative by negative case. And so the best way I have found to describe this has to do with the fact that there's a relationship between multiplication and division that has to be reversible. So here's a little theorem or property. If A times B is equal to C is a true statement, then C must be divisible by A and yield B. Or you could also have said C is divided by B gives you A. So the idea is that these two things have to be interchangeable. So if this is the case, let's now look at different situations for trying to decide what the rules are for dividing. So let's go with the fact 12 divided by 3 equals, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pretend I don't know what that is. And there are actually some processes and some curriculums that will teach regular multiplication and division facts this way as fact families. So if 12 divided by 3 is equal to some number, then that has to correspond to this multiplication fact that goes with it. Then 3 times what number is going to give you back 12. So in other words, what would you have to multiply by 3 to get 12? And we know that the answer to that is a positive 4, so that means that has to go there as well. All right, so what if I have 12 divided by a negative 3? Well, let's look at that one. If I have a negative 3 times some amount, what would that amount have to be to give me? Again, a positive 12. Now, from what we've just learned about multiplication, we know that to get a positive result, we have to have two numbers with the same sign. Here we had a positive times a positive, so now here we have to have a negative times a negative. So if we come back over here, that means that 12 divided by negative 3 must be negative 4. All right, now let's suppose that our dividend is negative. So let's take negative 12 divided by a positive 3. What could that be? So now we have to say, well, if I take a positive 3 times some quantity, how will I make that turn out to be a negative 12? Well, we know it has to be a 4. All of these are going to have to be 3 times 4. The thing that we're trying to figure out is the sign for the rule for the signs. So we know that to get a negative product, one of the factors has to be negative, and since the 3 is positive, that means the 4 has to be the one that's negative. And so we reverse it, and so we know that negative 12 divided by positive 3 is a negative 4. And of course, that old pesky negative divided by a negative case is the last one we need to look at. So if we rewrite it as a multiplication statement over here, so here we've got a negative product. One of the factors is already negative. That means the other factor has to be positive. So we get then that negative 12 divided by negative 3 gives you a positive 4. So it turns out that we get the same kind of results for division in terms of the sign issues as we would have for multiplication. So we actually end up dividing the absolute values the way we would normally divide, and then to assign whether it's positive or negative for the quotient, if we have a positive divided by a positive, we get a positive. If we have a negative divided by a negative, we get a positive. So if the signs are the same, we get a positive result. And then if we have a negative divided by a positive, that gives us a negative result. And if we have a positive divided by a negative, we get a negative result. So if the signs are different, we get a negative quotient. And we have similar rules that we looked at when we did the multiplication earlier. So see, here's that same idea. If the signs are the same, you get a positive result. If the signs are different, you get a negative result. And what we're actually multiplying in all of these cases is the absolute value of the quantities involved. And that then is our lesson for division of integers.